Okay, for what we have in the first item, looking at the square root of negative 27, and it says to write in terms of I. If we look at simplifying, okay, so we have in the case of the square root of negative 27, okay, so again we have the negative of 27, and if I factor out negative 1, okay, so you have the square root of 27 times the square root of negative 1, and we have the square root of 27, and again the square root of negative 1 becomes I, and for the highest perfect square divisible into 27, okay, that is going to be 9. And looking at reducing in terms of radical reduction, okay, so we have square root of 27 is the square root of 9 times the square root of 3. Again, we have I to follow. Square root of 9 is 3. And we have times the square root of 3 times I, and checking what we have here. Okay, so we have 3 times the square root of 3, and then we have times I, and I is not going to be in the radical. And checking, and the result is correct. And for the next item, okay, we have 6x squared plus 5x plus 4 is equal to 0, and it says to find all complex solutions. Okay, so for 6x squared plus 5x plus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, now we cannot factor this particular trinomial, so we can go with the quadratic formula. So you have a is equal to 6, b is equal to 5, and we have that c is equal to 4. And using the quadratic formula, okay, so you have x equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and negative b we have at negative 5 plus or minus, okay, the square root. Now b squared is going to be 5 squared. And we've got minus 4 times a times c, so you have minus 4 times 6 times 4. And we have all over 2a, where we have 2 times 6. And in the follow through, so we have negative 5 plus or minus the square root. And again, 5 squared is going to make 25. Negative 4 times 6 is negative 24, times 4 is negative 96. So you have 25 minus 96 is negative 71, and the square root of negative 71 is going to be the square root of 71 times I. Okay, and so we're going to have negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 71 times I. We have all over 12, and we can separate, saying that we have negative 5 plus the square root of 71 times I all over 12, as well as negative 5 minus the square root of 71 times I also over 12. So you have negative 5 plus the square root of 71 times I all over 12. Then we have negative 5 minus the square root of 71 times I also over 12, and checking, and the result is correct. And for what we have in the next item, we have Lena, who drove 200 miles using 9 gallons of gas. And at this rate, how many gallons of gas would she need to drive 420 miles? Okay, so we have, for this proportion, so she has used up 200, or used up a ratio where we have 9 gallons, okay, to get her to 200 miles on 9 gallons of gasoline. Now we're looking at how many gallons of gasoline she would need to travel 420 miles. And you could also 9 is to 200 as X is to 420. Okay, just make sure that your units are consistent. Okay, if you have miles per gallon, you want the other ratio to be miles per gallon. And if I set this up as 9 gallons to 200 miles, I would want the other ratio to be set up as X gallons to 420 miles. Okay, so we have a proportion. So we have 200 is to 9 as 420 is to X. And if I apply proportional cross products, okay, so we're going to have 200 multiplied by X is equal to 420 times 9. And so we still have 200X is equal to, and 420 times 9, okay, that is going to end up at 3780. And looking at division by 200. Okay, so I have 200x over 200 is x, and 3780 divided by 200, okay, that is going to be at 18.9, and so she will need 18.9 gallons. And checking the results, and that is correct. And we have with this problem, okay, we have a ball that is thrown from an initial height of 3 feet with an initial upward velocity of 37 feet per second. And it says here that the ball's height in feet after t seconds is given by the following formula. And it says to find all values of t for which the ball's height is going to be at 23 feet. Okay, so we got for this formula. Okay, so we're looking at the time for which the value of h is going to be at 23 feet. Okay, so we have 23 is equal to 3 plus 37t minus 16t squared. And if I go ahead and subtract 23, just to get the formula closer to where we have an equation that is a quadratic in standard form, and we'll take just the terms and rewriting in descending degree order. So you have negative 16t squared plus 37t, and 3 minus 23 becomes negative 20. And what I can do here is I can either multiply or divide by negative 1. X is in multiplying or dividing by negative 1. And this will not impact the values of t. So in the rewrites, I have 16t squared minus 37t plus 20. Okay, so for the quadratic equation that we have in standard form, we have 16t squared minus 37 times t plus 20 is equal to 0. Okay, so here we have that a is equal to 16, b equals negative 37, and we have that c is equal to 20. And looking at solving for t, okay, now we're not solving for x but for t, but we are still going on the same premises with the quadratic formula, working with those values representing a, b, and c. So for negative b, this will be the opposite sign of negative 37. We have plus or minus, okay, the square root, b squared, okay, we have at the square of negative 37, and minus 4ac, so we have minus 4 times 16 times 20. We have all over 2a, so that will be 2 times 16 Okay, so 2 times 16 is 32 in the denominator, minus negative 37 is a positive 37. And for what I have underneath the radical, okay, so we got with, okay, the square of negative 37. Again, the square of a negative is going to be a positive. Okay, so I got 1369. And for what we have in the case of negative 4 times 16 times 20, okay, so I got negative 1280. So right now I got t is equal to 37 plus or minus the square root, okay, this is going to be of 89 all over 32. And we have for the times, okay, we're going to have at the upper end, we'll have 37 plus the square root of 89 all over 32. And for the square root of 89, you have this number like 9.4339. And just keep the sum for right now. And for this particular part, okay, so I have 46.43398. And if I divide by 32 and round to the nearest 2 decimal places, okay, I have 1.4510. So at the upper end I have 1.45, and for what I have at the lower end, okay, so right now I got 37 minus the square root of 89 over 32. So this time I have 37 minus 9.4339 all over 32. Okay, and right now I got 27.56601 and dividing by 32 and rounding to the nearest 2 decimal places. Okay, this is going to be right at 0.86. And checking the results. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 distinct answers. We got 0.86 and 1.45, and checking, and the result is correct.